Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something, well, really personal for a lot of high achievers. Perfectionism.
Yeah, it's a word we hear a lot, often as a kind of backhanded compliment, right? Oh, I'm such a perfectionist.
Exactly. But the sources we've dug into show it's way deeper than that. It's this fundamental psychological thing that shapes whether you actually feel worthy, regardless of what you achieve.
It really boils down to the why. Are you striving because you genuinely love the challenge, the craft? Or are you driven by this deep terror of failing because failure feels like it defines you as a person?
We found this great contrast in the sources looking at two creative giants. First, think about Walt Disney, absolute genius of Snow White, right?
Totally, yeah.
But he was apparently plagued by this intense anxiety about failure. Even when the film was basically done, about to premiere, he was still sweating the small stuff, complaining the Queen's eyebrows were wrong or one of Grumpy's fingers was too big. Tiny details.
And that perfectionism, while it drove creativity, it also created this pressure cooker environment. He was reportedly chronically dissatisfied, always chasing something more. It led to a kind of isolation, really. The standard just kept moving.
Okay, then you flip the coin. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. He also had incredibly high standards.
Oh, absolutely. But his were pointed differently.
Right. The sources mentioned this one time he actually stopped production, halted everything, expensive crew just waiting. Why? Because he needed to talk to a child development expert. He felt a script wasn't quite right for kids.
See, that's it. Rogers managed this amazing thing. High standards plus flexibility. And crucially, connection. His goal was quality, yes, but it was in service to others. He wasn't demanding flawlessness just to feel okay about himself.
So that really sets up the core question for you listening. Where do you find yourself in that spectrum? Because perfectionism, fundamentally, it's just demanding more than the situation actually needs.
And we need to be super clear. There are kind of two main flavors here. There's what you might call healthy or adaptive perfectionism. High standards, sure, but they're flexible, reasonable.
Okay.
Then there's the unhealthy kind, the toxic stuff, where the standards are rigid, totally unrealistic. And the key thing we pulled out today is this. Unhealthy perfectionism isn't really about wanting to be perfect. It's about needing that flawless performance just to feel, well, sufficient. Just adequate as a human being.
Oh.
It's driven entirely by that constant background hum of, I'm not good enough.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is clear. We want to unpack the costs, the origins of that unhealthy kind, and then look at practical ways you can maybe shift towards that Fred Rogers path. Excellence, but with sanity and connection intact.
Let's start with the psychology. What's really going on inside?
Yeah, what's the engine driving this?
The main trap, according to the research, is something called overevaluation. Basically, your self-worth gets completely tangled up with your performance.
So how well you do is who you are.
Pretty much. You fuse the value of your work or your grades or your last project with your fundamental value as a person. It's all contingent.
Oh, like the classic straight-A student who gets a B and just completely melts down. Or the athlete whose whole mood depends on the last game.
Exactly, those kinds of examples. And the result is, well, it's brutal. You become your own harshest critic. And the goalposts, they're always moving.
How so?
Well, if you do somehow meet those insane expectations, what happens? Your inner critic just immediately goes, guess that wasn't hard enough.
Ah, okay. Never get the win.
Never. And if you fail, or even just fall slightly short, you're absolutely merciless with yourself. There's no declaring victory, ever.
So these impossible standards, where does all that pressure actually come from? Is it just us beating ourselves up?
Well, that's part of it, but no, not entirely. Psychologists, people like Flett and Hewitt, they break it down into three main types based on where the pressure feels like it's originating.
Okay, three types. What are they?
So the first one is the classic version, self-oriented perfectionism. That's when the demanding standards come from inside you. You're just constantly hard on yourself.
Right, the internal taskmaster.
Then number two is other-oriented perfectionism. This is where you take those impossible standards and you project them onto everyone else, your partner, your kids, your team at work.
Oh, so you become the critical one.
Yeah, you get judgmental, you look down on people if they don't meet your bar. The source mentioned Francesca's husband. He had these super high standards for fitness, for cooking, and he'd criticize her efforts because, they weren't hard enough for him. It wasn't about helping her, it was about judging her against his rigid ruler.
Okay, and the third type, you said this one is increasing.
Exponentially, yeah. This is socially prescribed perfectionism.
Mm.
And this one's rough. It's the feeling that other people, your boss, your parents, your peers, maybe even just society or social media, have these impossibly high expectations for you. And that they're constantly watching, waiting for you to fail, ready to judge you harshly.
Wow, that sounds paralyzing, like the pressure's coming from everywhere.
It is, and that's why it's often considered the most toxic type. It feels inescapable, like you have no control.
So where does this stuff even start? Does it often trace back to childhood?
Very often, yes. The family blueprint is powerful. Researchers point to a couple of common environments. One is called the anxious rearing model.
Anxious rearing.
Yeah, think of parents who are really preoccupied with correctness. They desperately want to protect their kids from being judged by the outside world.
Okay, that sounds protective.
You'd think, but the irony is, in trying to shield their kids from criticism, they often end up dishing it out themselves constantly. They create this home environment where everything is evaluated, how you did, how you look, your choices. Instead of just acceptance, there's this constant low-level judgment.
Oh. Creates the very thing they were trying to avoid.
Exactly. The second major pathway is the social expectations model. This is where approval, maybe even love or attention, feels conditional. It has to be earned through performing well or having certain attributes.
Conditional approval. Like
Yeah.
you have to achieve to be loved.
Essentially. The source gives this really stark example of Ivan. His mother would actually smack his hand if he got math problems wrong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the message he absorbed deep down was brutal. Mom's pride, maybe even her affection, only came when he performed correctly. Failure meant, well, pain and disapproval.
So the takeaway message for the kid is just devastating. What you do matters way more than who you are.
Precisely. You learn very quickly to focus on pleasing others, on meeting expectations, because your sense of safety and worth depends on it.
And that leads right into this big irony you mentioned, the connection paradox.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of all this striving, this perfectionism, is often an attempt to buy safety, right?
Yeah.
To get acceptance, to finally feel connected and like you belong. You try to perform your way into the group.
Yeah, you think if you're the perfect student, the perfect employee, the perfect partner, people will admire you, and that admiration will feel like connection.
But it doesn't work.
It really doesn't, not in a lasting way. That admiration is like emotional fast food.
Huh. Okay, explain that.
Well, it feels good for a second, right?
Yeah.
That hit of validation when someone praises your work, instant gratification. But it doesn't actually nourish you. There's no deep, sustained satisfaction there.
Why not? If they admire you, isn't that connection?
Because perfectionism pushes you towards agency, focusing on your achievements, your goals, your competence, what you do.
Okay.
And it makes you neglect communion, which is about real intimacy, vulnerability, just being seen and accepted for who you are, flaws and all. You end up feeling isolated precisely because you're trying so damn hard to perform your way into connection. You're achieving, yes, but often you're also incredibly lonely.
Wow. That really hits home.
Yeah.
So if this whole perfectionism thing is built on this foundation of constant evaluation, judging ourselves, judging others, we have to change the feedback loop entirely.
Exactly. We need a different model.
Well, where do we see that? You mentioned Coach Wooden earlier.
Yeah.
The basketball coach.
Yes. John Wooden at UCLA. Legendary coach. Most successful college basketball program ever. Coached huge stars like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And you'd think, okay, first practice with these amazing freshmen, he's going to jump into complex plays, right? Or intense shooting drills.
Yeah, something high level.
Yeah. But no. Our sources say he started with socks.
Socks. Seriously.
Seriously. He meticulously taught them step by step how to put their socks on correctly. He had this little mantra, tug and snug,
Tug and snug.
for world-class athletes.
His logic was impeccable, he explained. Wrinkles cause blisters. Blisters mean you can't play effectively, you end up on the bench. Players on the bench, they lose games. It was all purely operational, focused only on the task, zero judgment involved.
That sounds almost ridiculously simple, but I get it. It's about instruction, not evaluation.
You nailed it. Someone actually studied Wooden's coaching sessions, found that something like 75%, 3/4 of everything he said was purely instructional, focused on the task, the process, not on the player's innate talent or their attitude or whether they were good or bad. Okay, so why is that instructional approach so powerful against perfectionism?
Because instructional comments give you a solution. They tell you what to do differently next time. They're practical. Whereas evaluation, whether it's positive praise, you're so talented, or negative criticism, you messed that up, just leaves you stuck with a judgment about yourself.
Okay. It doesn't tell you how to improve. It just labels you,
Yeah,
which is the perfectionist's nightmare already.
exactly. And this applies directly to how we talk to ourselves, right? That internal voice.
So instead of, let's say, Adam, the student who's coding and gets stuck, instead of him spiraling into, ugh, what's wrong with me? I'm just not smart enough for this.
Right, that's pure evaluation.
He needs to channel Coach Wooden
Yeah.
and say something like, okay, try making a flowchart first, or break this down. What are 3 tiny steps I could take right now?
Precisely. Shift from self-flagellation to practical, actionable information. That's a huge lever.
Okay, that makes sense. And that connects to the second big shift you mentioned about not putting all our eggs in one basket.
Yeah, the performance basket. When your entire sense of self-worth rests on how well you perform, burnout isn't just possible, it's pretty much inevitable.
The sources had a great example here. The cellist, Yo-Yo Ma.
Oh, brilliant example. He talked about striving constantly for the perfect concert, getting every note just right. But then he had this realization. When a concert was technically perfect, he felt completely bored.
Bored by perfection.
Yeah, he said he was bored out of his mind. The perfectionist self felt empty, hollow.
So what did he do?
He made this really conscious shift. He decided to dedicate his life less to human perfection and more to human expression, finding meaning through connection, through sharing, through the joy of it.
Human expression versus human perfection. I like that.
And that led him to do things like, spontaneously playing his cello at a COVID vaccination center, just to offer some comfort to people. The meaning wasn't in the flawless execution anymore. It was in the act of service, the connection.
Okay, so for the listener, maybe someone like Gus from the sources, who's terrified of being seen as incompetent, unless he's constantly projecting this air of perfect competence. That shift is key.
Absolutely vital.
But moving from needing to be perfect to just expressing yourself, that must feel incredibly vulnerable. How do you even start making that leap?
Well, you start by understanding the things that are keeping you stuck, the coping mechanisms. And for a lot of perfectionists, a big one is procrastination.
Procrastination. The old friend. We usually think that's just bad time management, right? Being lazy.
That's the common view. But there was this really important study back in the 90s, Case Western Reserve University. Tice, Bretzlavsky, Baumeister, they dug into it.
And what did they find?
They found procrastination isn't really about time management at all. It's fundamentally about emotion management.
Emotion management. How so?
Okay, so they found the students who procrastinated the most had 3 things in common. 1, they felt bad about the task, anxious, inadequate, guilty, stressed, whatever. 2, they actually believed their bad mood could be changed. And 3, they had tempting distractions readily available.
Okay, so they felt bad, thought they could feel better, and had an easy way out.
Exactly. Procrastination was basically a way to temporarily dodge those uncomfortable feelings associated with the task specifically, the fear of judgment and failure that's so tied up with perfectionism. You put off the task to put off feeling bad.
Okay, that's a huge insight.
Yeah.
It means you don't have to wait until you feel good or confident or ready before you start something.
Precisely. That's the actionable bit. The strategy is break the task down into ridiculously small, non-threatening steps. And then, this is key, be willing to feel lousy while you do that first tiny step. Make space for the anxiety or the self-doubt, but start anyway.
Just tolerate the discomfort and begin.
Yes. Because when you do that, even if it's just opening the document or writing one sentence, you start collecting what psychologists call mastery experiences, tiny wins. And those small successes actually start to improve your mood and build momentum. It works the opposite way to how perfectionists think action first, feel better later.
Got it. So the overall goal here isn't to stop caring about quality or to suddenly become sloppy. It's not about ditching high standards altogether.
No, not at all. It's about gaining flexibility. We're aiming for adaptive perfectionism, the kind where the benefits you get from your standards actually outweigh the costs in terms of stress, anxiety, and isolation.
Like Gus, who eventually focused less on being impressive in his presentation, which was exhausting him, and more on just sharing his earnest energy and ideas.
Exactly. It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything. It's moving away from that rigid tyranny of the shoulds, that internal rule book telling you how things must be done.
And moving towards
Focusing on your chosen values. Think of values as your personal compass, your North Star. They guide how you want to live, what you want to stand for, irrespective of hitting some perfect outcome every single time.
That reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about the word perfection itself, the Greek root.
Ah, yes. Telos. Originally, telos just meant goal or end, like the finished product of what you were trying to achieve.
Okay.
But in a lot of modern psychological thinking, it's being reinterpreted more as purpose, the why behind what you're doing, shifting focus from the specific outcome to the underlying reason, the way you want to engage with the world.
From the what to the why. I like that.
And that brings us, I think, to a final thought for you, the listener. Maybe the deepest, quietest wish underneath all that perfectionistic striving is actually incredibly simple.
Read it.
It's the wish to feel safe, to feel accepted, to feel connected, unconditionally, without having to perform perfectly, without having to earn it constantly. We spend so much energy trying to achieve through effort what we fundamentally crave as a gift.
That's powerful. And the good news, maybe, is that you don't have to wait until you've somehow conquered all your self-criticism or eliminated all the discomfort before you start moving towards what actually matters to you.
Absolutely not. You can feel anxious and still act. You can hear that critical voice and still choose your values. Think of it like this. A perfectionistic thought pops into your head. It isn't inherently good or bad. It's just a thought your brain produced. The real question is, what do you do with it?
So don't fight the thought necessarily.
Maybe just account for it. Acknowledge your brain does that critical thing automatically. And then, kind of metaphorically, aim a few inches to the side of that criticism. Accept the next invitation, big or small, that actually aligns with your values, with your why, regardless of whether you feel perfectly ready or capable.
Just take the step.
Take the imperfect step. That movement, even when flawed, even when uncomfortable, that's where the freedom